Had a flat battery on the Galaxy the other day and no ignition light on, so it was a bit confusing. So I'm just going to have a look, see what we can find. So, is it going to be a loose cable or something? Let's take the battery cover off. That seems to be all clamped up nicely. Let's have a look at the earth's fine. Now the alternator's down here. Obviously there's going to be a big fat cable coming off the back of the alternator, but there's also another connector. The alternator's not that old, actually. The belt is intact, so the alternator is spinning, so that'll be fine. The connector that provides you with your sort of diagnostics, ignition light, that sort of thing on the dash, that's in here as well. So let's whip this off. This has seen better days. So we've got the big fat alternator cable down here. That seems to be well terminated. The other connector is plugged on. See, the ignition light was going out as if it was charging, but the battery didn't charge. So let's have a look, see if we can follow the route of the battery cable. It goes under here. It's in some little protective plastic coating actually, and then it comes round and comes up here and goes into this little box here. Let's take a look in and see what we can find. A couple of clips with ears. Flip the ears. Oh. That's a bit broken there. It's not very good. But I think I found the problem. Very rusty, very crusty, and looks as though it's got rather warm as well. Some staining on here. That looks as though it's got warm. Has become warm at some time. I wonder why. Why particularly this one? It looks very rusted on. Let's get some WD-40 on. Let that soak in for a bit, and then see whether we can shift that nut without completely destroying the box. These are all common on this side, and that goes to the battery. If that post is completely destroyed, I suppose this is a fuse. That's what that is. Yes, that's a very large fuse, because these ones are slightly different, and I think, yeah, you see that one says 60A. These two are the same, and that one's twice as fat as these. So I decided to put a meter on. If I go on the cable leaving the alternator, I've got it set to ohms, so to be very careful I don't touch the ground anywhere. Mustn't touch the chassis, I should say, not ground. And if I go on the actual copper cable itself, I can get the resistance down to 0.2 of an ohm. If I go here, it's actually reading 33 k ohms. So there's clearly a problem across here. So to say, I'm just on the other end of this cable with the other probe. Shut the fuck up. Well, here's my new part. Well, when I say new, second hand, 20 quid off eBay. It's not got quite the right or the same fuse arrangement as my existing one, but we can see the main incoming feed is in a much better condition. I suppose the dilemma is, do I use this connector and somehow do an inline to my existing cable? Probably not. I'm going to have to find a lug. May have to go and get one. It's got 150 amp fuse in it. Yeah. Well, that's good because this one looks a bit bent and could be a bit tortured. Got a 110, but all I've got to do is replace I think I've only got 160 amp in here and I need 2, and these 2 are 40s in here, so I'm going to just take the ones out of here that I need and put them in here. I don't know why it's got different sized, because I don't know what vehicle this was off precisely. These are the same, but yeah, who knows. But it's not really a problem. My issue is I don't have another crimp to re-terminate this cable. There's plenty of there is sufficient slack anyway on this incoming feed to be able to do this. To cut this back and put another crimp on there. It's only got to be 1.5 inches probably, something like that, just to get rid of this oxidised crusty bit here. I did look at brand new ones, and partly because I didn't want to be left for sort of 6 weeks or so whilst it came from China, because that was always the risk, even though it said it was made somewhere else. Who knows? It's the mysteries of eBay. But other than that, I couldn't guarantee that this cable would actually be copper and wouldn't end up being copper coated aluminium because they were like 12 quid new, and this one was 20 quid second hand. So I went for that, because at least if this was original, this is nice and flexible, that this is more likely to be copper, not copper coated aluminium, because I'd just be swapping one disaster for another. So I think I'm going to start taking this apart. Now that I've got this one, I know that if I take this apart and it all comes apart and it's wrecked, then it doesn't really matter. So first thing I'm going to do is disconnect it from the battery. Of course, making sure that I don't drop the spanner across any other metal parts, because we'd be looking for a new spanner. I think I will just check the box with a voltmeter just to make sure that there isn't any voltage coming from anywhere else, because the battery is still connected to this cable, which I'm guessing goes straight down to the starter motor, but I don't want to have any accidents. Yep, that's nothing there, that's quite safe. Yeah, trying to get this connector off. It seems to be latching on something on this side. Why it couldn't be on that side where you could get to it, I don't know. But anyway, it's right up under there. Well, I got it off. It actually slid off quite easily. So you press there, and then this piece moves away from the connector body, and then it will slide off. So actually what you want to do is to get your hand around the back, press at this point here with your thumb perhaps, and then just wiggle it and it came off. So that wasn't too bad. There's a clip under there to get this whole box off. I've got to work out how that works now. This clip down here, the side of the box here, you just have to push it down. I don't want to push it down too much because it's probably going to be that brittle plastic will end up breaking. That was far enough. So now it was caught on the battery. There we go. There's a close-up view of the damage. You can see the 150 amp fuse, which should look like this. It's just rotted off. And I can only assume that it's rotted off because it was getting hot and then cold and then hot and then cold, and presumably all the condensation on it. Because you'd rather like to think that these were stainless steel, but, well, maybe not the fuses. Anyway, it's gone. So let's start prepping this one with some of the parts from there. First we'll disconnect this. So it comes off really easily when you know how to do it. The fuses appear to be okay. Those two are intact. I can just see something in there. Yeah, that's fine. That's a 60. And it looks the same as that. And that says 60. I'm not too worried about that one. But that one says 40. And I think this one it says 60. I'm going to have to get something to have a closer look. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, that's a 60, and that one's only a 40. So let's swap that one out. Yeah, I think what I'll do is take this one out and clean it, because the slightest bit of dirt on here will cause a little bit of high resistance, and if you're taking, I don't know, 100 amps or something, that's going to be not a good idea. This one looks a bit dirty as well, so I think I'll take this one out and clean it. The others look reasonably clean actually, but I will give them a wipe before I reassemble it. There we go. Let's give these a little bit of a shine. Right, let's give that a clean up. A little bit of Vaseline on there. Try to stop it from oxidizing on the tinned surface. It was always good enough for high current telecoms operation. Hundreds of amps using Vaseline on the bus bars. So I reckon it'll be fine for this. Well, this 150 amp one took a bit of cleaning actually. There was a little bit of pitting on the fuse, so I got some 800 grit wet and dry and cleaned it up. And then dipped it in a jar of Vaseline, just get a bit of Vaseline on there to stop it oxidizing. I'm not scratching this, I'm just giving it ever such a light rub with the edge of the screwdriver just to see if any of this oxidization will come off. Just a little bit of dirt in there. And given that we are dealing with these high currents, it would be silly to build a problem in of the nature that you were actually trying to fix. Let's give the washer a little bit of a scrub as well. Rub a bit of Vaseline on. Because that'll all squeeze out when it tightens up. It certainly won't get in the way of the metal making contact. There we go. Best put these back before I forget. Well, I think that's things ready. So I'm just going to just give this a little bit of a clean up these connectors a bit. That looks all right in there. I'm obviously not going to be making that off onto here just yet, onto the battery. because I've got to resolve this. Yeah. Yeah, the paint is just starting to bubble a bit on the edges, so I think I'll put a bit of WD-40 on there. Maybe putting the fuses back in at this point wasn't a good idea. God, this spanner only just goes on past these bits of plastic. It really is close. I can see why that one was damaged. Somebody must have changed it before. Oh, this is a real mess here on this incoming feed from the alternator. So it's just going to have to come off, and then we'll be able to see what the situation is. So whether I need to cut any more off. And the copper's just falling apart where it's coming out of the crimp. So I think this should be all right. The actual cut ends of this look quite bright, so I'm rather hoping that that's all I'll need to cut off. I'm going to need to prep this end, cut enough insulation off so that I can then crimp it. I think I am going to have to cut a bit more. There is a difference in colour here. This is still heat treated, as it were. I suppose it's some form of oxidising. And obviously I can't go through and scrape every one, so it looks as though we're going to be cutting it about here somewhere and losing that bit. That's okay, because there's still enough cable. So if I cut another piece equivalent to that, if you're going to use a knife to take insulation off, just make sure you don't actually cut through all the insulation with it. This knife is not very sharp. And I wouldn't want to ride to London on it, but it's not very sharp. Because you wouldn't want to nick any of these individual pieces of copper. Yeah, this insulation is actually quite soft, and if you just give it a little cut line, it breaks off. That's probably why it's inside some plastic conduit down inside there, sort of flexi conduit. But that looks much better colour. Yes, that's much better. Right, all I need to do now is source another crimp. So, see how we do with that. Now I've got a lug I'm going to put on here. Just about fits, might just have to file a little bit off the side to get that to go down in there, because the original lugs have got rounded ends, so I have to do a bit of that. No way can I reuse the nut that should be on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch the one off this other fuse box. I reckon I can probably, there we go. So that'll do nicely for the nut, although I may just want to give that a clean before we assemble it. And I'm going to cut some of this back so that it goes into there, because I had established that this was probably a bit dirty on the end. So that'll go back to about there. Now, it was difficult to work out what size lug I needed. This one is, it's possible that this is a 16mm cable and this is a 25mm lug, but there was little point in getting one which was too small, because I can always double over these connections like so. So I reckon that's taken taking it up to about the right size now. So what I do is just cut the remainder of these off. So let's cut off the excess, and then, oops, missed one. Yeah, that's a nice tight fit. Get that onto there, lovely. Well, I've got the end all dressed up ready. I gave it a bit of a rub with a 800 wet and dry as well, just to clean any oxide off, and it looks nice and bright. I've stuck a load of Vaseline around this end of this crimp as well, so to try to stop moisture from going in there, because the end of this box is, although that's a reasonably tight hole, it's not sealed. So now I'm going to crimp this on and see how it goes. Still firmly in there. Do a quick pull test. Can't get that off. I can't see any movement. It's not even any movement back here. It's not even flexing at that point there. That's how strongly the strands are being held. So I just need to file a little bit off this lug, because the ears are catching on there. So let's go and get a file. Probably best not to get the filings down inside the car. You're going to have to imagine what somebody filing looks like. Yeah, just give it a teeny bit more, because it wouldn't be a terribly good idea that when I tighten the nut I twist the box, and that is never a good situation, ever. Yeah, there's a little bit of movement in there now. Right, that's brilliant. Now, there weren't any washers on this end. I'll give this my nuts a bit of a rub down. Juvenile, I know. In my head, I'm only 13. It's been a source of problems my entire life. Oops. Oh, that's good. What's that? Is that the German exclamation when they've finished every job? Good and tight. Okay, clean this up, because that's got to go back on the battery over there. Only just fits around this massive battery. Right, before I connect this up, I'm going to check that there isn't a short circuit on there. Just check that against the battery. It's measuring, well, 2.7k and rising. I've had the battery on charge for a short while, and it's about 12.2 volts now, so I'm going to give it a try, see whether it will turn over and start up and not have any problems. I might check it for volt drops across those fuses to make sure it's okay. That's 14.1 volts across there.